In a Hollywood production called Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps, big finance is depicted as totally amoral. This is the world whistleblower Andrew Maguire believes he is confronting as he alleges 2 Wall Street banks were rigging the price of silver and making billions doing it. In Washington, Maguire approaches Commissioner Bart Chilton at the CFTC, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. Their job is to police the trading of gold and silver.
What we've seen all too often is where you have an individual trader who has excessive concentration. And when I say excessive, I mean concentration that can lead to pushing prices around. And we've seen it in precious metals, in silver, in gold, and in some of the other commodities.
Maguire proposes a scheme to catch the bank rigging the price. He will go online with a CFTC investigator and guide him through the manipulation in real time.
I was on live with him saying, right now, silver's going to go any minute now. I saw the signal come in, which is pretend offers and bids coming in and not trading. So suddenly, silver takes a drop. And I warned him just before, silver is going to go down below $15. Really, he had everything in his hands, live, and pre-warned, a bit like me saying to the police, there's going to be a bank robbery and an ATM machine at exactly 3 o'clock this afternoon.
The scenario unfolds exactly as Maguire predicted. It triggers a CFTC investigation.
The Andrew Maguire circumstance gets into an investigation currently ongoing, but we're doing the best we can, given the resources we have, and I think we've made some progress.
But it's an uphill battle for a poorly funded and understaffed CFTC facing off against the massive lobbying effort by the banks. The investigation is now entering its 2nd year. The U.S. Department of Justice has also launched a criminal investigation. JP Morgan and the Hong Kong bank HSBC are being investigated on allegations of conspiring to intentionally and unlawfully suppress and manipulate the price of silver. Across most of the world, the tallest building in almost every major city is a bank tower. Cathedrals of finance. The Royal Bank Building in Toronto takes the cake. Towering 41 stories over the downtown, it gleams golden in the morning sunshine. The answer to where's the gold? Astonishingly, it's baked into the windows. The glass of each of the 1,700 panes is cooked with 50 ounces of gold leaf. Now that gold is valued at about $144 million. The effect is spectacular. It is an appropriate setting for one of the world's most successful precious metal funds. The fund is run by billionaire philanthropist Eric Sprott. He says the history of the world is the story of gold.
The oldest coin we have is from Ionia, and it's dated 580 BC. And some over here as well, I guess, that are Roman.
Pinned to the wall, in contrast, is a $100 trillion Zimbabwe note, an inflated fate Sprott believes waits ultimately for most paper currency.
All of the gold in the world ever produced is still above ground because people don't lose track of gold.
For his investors, it's critical for Sprott to keep track of gold, and right now, he's convinced there's something wrong with the arithmetic. He has assembled a team to track gold internationally, headed by economist Frank Veneroso, a legendary gold analyst.
The gold market is a very shadowy market. It operates in all kinds of countries where there's very, very little in the way of organized information, data collection, what goes on with central banks and bullion banks. They never tell you. They never expose themselves.
In the year 2000, Veneroso conducted a forensic investigation into the movement of gold from the central banks to the bullion banks. He discovered that they had been covertly leasing their gold on a large scale. Bank of England gold, for example, was leased to bullion banks like JP Morgan, HSBC, and Morgan Stanley. In turn, the banks took the rented gold and sold it. Often, it was melted down for jewelry.
Where is that gold now? That gold isn't around. It's not in a depository anymore.
Yet, while the gold is gone, the Bank of England or Fort Knox, for example, can still claim to own the gold because it's on their books as rented, not sold. It's a dangerous game. Gold has always been seen as the canary in the mine, a barometer measuring the world's economy.
If we all woke up tomorrow and saw gold was up $100, you'd think one of three things. You'd think there's a problem in the financial community, a war has started, or somehow we're going into hyperinflation. That's the message of gold.
So what's happening now? Who is buying gold? And where is that gold coming from? Eastern central banks in Russia and China are big buyers.
1,000 in the central banks. China, at least 500 tons. You got your ETFs are 200. So I got 1,700 right there. I haven't even gone to the U.S. Mint, the Canadian Mint. I know what their sales were.
The demand is huge. Can gold mines keep up? Sprott says not.
There's actually only 2,200 tons mined that's even available to buy.
Your conclusion then is there has to be an official sector supply, and it has to be very big.
Yeah, I'm already up to 2,400 tons now using this data. But I think the elephant's in the room already. That's my view.
For Eric Sprott, the elephant in the room is this. Western central banks are running out of gold. Gold that cannot be replaced. Goldfinger. Many regard the Sean Connery Bond film featuring a Fort Knox plot as the best of the early 007 franchise. It won box office gold, reflecting the world's fascination with the precious metal and what really might be going on behind the gates of the United States Gold Depository, guarded at the Fort Knox Army Base. The director of the American Museum of Finance, Richard Silla, says Fort Knox has a controversial history. At the height of the Great Depression, President Roosevelt ordered Americans to turn in all their gold. Tons of coins, ingots, and jewelry. They were paid in paper dollars at $35 an ounce.
What did Roosevelt do with the gold? Well, it was mostly melted down into gold bars and put in the Federal Gold Depository at Fort Knox, Kentucky. So that's where the Fort Knox gold came from. It used to belong to all the American people, and then the governments nationalized it and put it in Fort Knox.
The fort boasted a massive new vault in the middle of a fortified army base in Kentucky. That was the last time the gold was really counted. Commodities analyst Jeffrey Christian believes the gold is still intact.
I'm comfortable that the gold's there. People have seen it. It's audited every year by the Inspector General of the U.S. Treasury.
But there is no testing, no assay as part of the audit. The last full count was done in 1954, with a media show and tell in 1974. But a recent attempt to force full disclosure was defeated in the Congress. Precious metal billionaire Eric Sprott says aloud what many suspect when asked, is there gold in Fort Knox?
That's a good question. There has been no audit since, I think it's 1954 or something like that. An audit would not be a difficult thing to do. I think you have to assume that all the gold's not there.
By 2013, apprehension about the security of national gold reserves was not confined to Fort Knox. Venezuela took everyone by surprise by staging a political drama with gold front and center.
It was really amazing to see people marching alongside the armored trucks bringing in the gold to the country.
More than any other people, nations like Venezuela know that blood, war, and conquest often flow like molten gold. In 1998, when Hugo Chavez was first elected president of Venezuela, he discovered that Venezuela's gold, once again, was in European hands, courtesy of the world's most controversial financial institutions. Journalist Eva Gollinger has written about the country's finances for years.
The International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, told the Venezuelan government that in order for them to be able to secure loans and to prosper in the long term under this new type of neoliberalism, they needed to send their gold to be stored in banks outside of Venezuela.
With gold brick in hand, Chavez began a campaign to explain to the people of Venezuela why it was a bad idea for the gold to be out of the country. All told, 211 tons of bullion worth some $11 billion was held by foreign banks.
And it wasn't until President Chavez realized that Venezuela's gold could be in jeopardy, being stored in banks in the United States and in Europe where there were extreme financial crises occurring, that the gold of Venezuela could somehow be used by these banks to cure their own internal financial woes.
Gold expert John Embry says Venezuela's demand set off a small panic on the gold market. Venezuela's gold clearly was not allocated, that is, set aside in a vault with Venezuela's name on it.
It took a long time. And I mean, it put stress on the market because they had to go out and find enough gold to ship this, and it wasn't a large amount either.
Chavez kept the pressure on. 6 months later, the government threw a grand parade to welcome home the first shipment of Venezuela's gold. Like France and England, Venezuela came to understand the power of gold as a guarantee of national sovereignty. But other countries haven't been so successful when they tried to repatriate their gold. Most of Germany's gold is stored in New York at the Federal Reserve Bank, the Fed. But when the Bundesbank, the Germans' central bank, asked to see their gold in 2012, the Fed refused access, citing security concerns. Now Germany's asking for its gold back. Eric Sprott is convinced most of the German gold is gone.
Well, it's obvious they don't have all their own gold. I mean, they basically said that. We have some gold in our vaults and we have some gold elsewhere. And I don't think it's defined even how much they have in Germany. I would bet that the Germans don't have access to the gold they think they own.
Canadians, too, may be in for a shock. The nation's central bank boasts a modern headquarters that has won architectural awards. But no prize would be awarded for how they have managed the best-performing asset of the last decade. The Canadian answer to "Where's the gold?" is simple. Except for a few bars, it's gone. All gone. Despite its international reputation for gold mining, Canada has sold off its multi-ton gold reserve over the last 3 decades under both conservative and liberal governments.
I think it's important that the country, in order to have some strength within the international financial community, has some gold.
Gold analyst John Embry says a monumental shift is underway in the world of gold. Citizens and nations will ignore it at their peril.
What people in the West don't seem to realize, I think they're making a ghastly mistake, is that the people in the East, the Chinese, the Vietnamese, Indians, Russians, they delight in this opportunity to buy the cheap gold. So it's going west to east. And as an old adage, gold goes where the wealth is being created. I mean, it doesn't say a lot about the future of the West.
Behind the castle walls of the Royal Canadian Mint, modern alchemists are casting golden ingots and 1-ounce golden leafs to feed the growing hunger for gold. In each century, the stakes for gold get higher. In the 20th century, gold became the ultimate guarantee of sovereignty, paying for world war and mass murder. In the 21st century, gold still manages to keep its secrets. Perhaps the biggest one of all? Where's the gold? And who owns it?